This is my review of Banshee at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. This is a B&M invert made by Claremont Steel Fabricators, based out of Ohio, not too far from where this coaster was made. Let's go ahead and talk about the location of this ride in Kings Island. So you go into your entrance, and then if you take a left, you have Invertigo, and it's an action zone. So you have Invertigo, like I said, Sky Coaster, Drop Tower, and the Bat. The Bat's kind of hidden. You gotta take a walk trail, so it's really not in the area. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about Banshee. You're gonna walk up to it and see this cool, very cool entrance sign, and then see the ride towering over you with this massive dive loop and this vertical loop that interacts with the lift hill. It's so cool looking. And then you got this massive zero G roll you can see from the back. Anyway, aside from that, once you get the queue, has some good theming in it. It's pretty. It is Cedar Fair theming, so don't expect a lot from it. But once you make your way into the station, you're gonna go ahead and board your train. The train. What? Where did they go wrong with this? Why is it vest restraints? What were you thinking? B&M and Cedar Fair. And I have a feeling this was not B&M. This was Cedar Fair's problem. Why would you put vest restraints on a invert? Let's keep them with the dives and the wings. They're not airtime and focused. It's not a full ride ruiner, but it tightens up a lot. And these things are full of G's. This one doesn't have as many G-forces as some of the others, but still, what were you thinking with the trains? Anyway, let me not rant about the trains for too long. Alright, so you pull out of the station, you take a left-hand turn, and you ascend up your 167-foot lift hill. It does not look that tall unless you're in Adventure Express's queue or anywhere in other than the Banshee Plaza. Then you go into this massive floater dive loop with some good negatives. Then you go into this very intense vertical loop that has some good positives. Then you go into your zero G roll. Then you go into your pretzel knot, which this pretzel knot is so weird. It's like a dive loop and an Engelmann put together. They're so weird. It's the only one that exists, I'm pretty sure. It's definitely the only one on an invert, I can tell you that. But I don't know. It's so weird. Aside from that, after that, you're gonna go into your second vertical loop. This loop provides some good negatives, and then that's about it for forces that are positive. After that vertical loop, you get some negatives and good positives in the valleys. We're done with positives now. Then you go into the most dull part of the ride, and this upwards right bank turn. You go up into this turn, and then you go into one of the coolest parts of the ride. I still would say the vertical loop at the beginning is my favorite part of the ride. You go into this inline twist, and you rotate to the left, and you rotate around the heart lining of like your center of mass. So it's so cool how they do it, unlike some aero coasters that are rotated around the track, not your center of mass. But I'm not a physics expert, so you can go into that. You can look that up. But after that, you bank downwards to your left, then you bank upwards to your right, and then you flatten out and even out into your brakes. 4,124 feet. It is a very long coaster, especially for an invert. I think the other longest invert is like Alpengeist, I think, is the other longest. I'm going to compare this ride with Alpengeist a lot, you'll notice. They're not the same ride. Do not expect riding Banshee like riding Alpengeist. They're nothing alike. Alpengeist tries to kill you with the Cobra Roll. Banshee is very loose and drawn out. Usually, the bigger the ride, the more drawn out. Like, think of the Batman the Ride clones. I know it's a clone, but it's probably the best cloned ride that is probably existed. I mean, you can pick that or the Superman clones. Which one? I'm picking the Batman clones any day. Any day. But, if I had to pick any other B&M invert with this, I'd probably pick this. Even though I still like Afterburn Montu. Maybe even Raptor over this still. But Banshee is definitely one of the best inverts. It's more drawn out, so it's not... I feel like if this was a wing coaster, it would make more sense. Maybe not the curb drop, but if you see, you see. Think about it. This thing is so long. They had so much more room to work with. I mean, there was Son of Beast, that disaster. Think if they didn't have... you know how big that thing was. You could probably have made this so much longer, but kind of glad the park did not do that. But they could have. I really think it looks very long, but if you draw it out on paper, it kind of feels kind of short. It's just a dive loop, loop, zero-G roll, pretzel knot, loop, inline twist, and that's it. It's only 6 inversions, but they work. They all work except for that pretzel knot. I don't know what they were trying to do with that. It's cool, but it's just... I don't know. It's just... I feel like it's not meant for an invert. It's meant for, like, maybe a flyer. That's probably the only other. And also, one more thing. Stop comparing flyers to inverts. They're completely different rides. Don't compare them. Just because they're under the track and made by the same company doesn't mean they're the same type of ride. They're completely different. Don't compare them. I don't want to see people comparing them. Anyway, let's go ahead and move into my overall score of Banshee at Kings Island. I'm going to give this ride a 8.3. The reason I give this to an 8.3, see, some of the other inverts are going to get higher than this. I get that. This ride is one of the newer inverts, and B&M's newer coasters are not as intense as they once were. Because B&M, I think, realized that they were like, okay, we're making things way too intense. We need to chill out a little bit. So now, would you rather pick Vekoma or B&M 20 years ago? Not 20 years ago, but like 10 years ago. You're going to pick B&M. Now, I'm going to pick Vekoma over B&M now. That's just me. B&M's kind of going downhill. If you look at Rapterra testing, the thing looks so rough. I mean, it's just, like, so, I don't know. B&M, like, bring back your old coasters. It was probably the old steel, but that was good, because the cost of steel is through the roof. But anyway, enough of me yapping. I think this coaster, it is a really good ride. It's not meant as the type of ride it is. It's just not it. Like, it's not designed how an invert would be designed. The first half is good. The second half, but it's still a fun ride, and I recommend make sure you do ride it when you go to Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. That's my review for Banshee. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a very blessed day. Goodbye.